Hey guys, Chef Jeremy here. Thank you all for waiting. We're a couple minutes behind, but we're ready to jump in, and I hope you're ready to jump in along with us. We are coming at you from our teaching kitchen on the Woodwinds Health Campus. And again, this is Chef Jeremy with Fairview Ways to Wellness. Again, you guys, thanks for joining us for lunch. We're super excited to get this going, and we're pretty much going to jump right in. So we've got a few of these under our belt. We're kind of getting into our groove, and I hope you guys are all cooking along with us at home as well. So we are making a grass-fed bison meatball today with a penne pasta and marinara sauce that we have made actually yesterday. So if any of you were with us yesterday, we're going to repurpose yesterday's lunch, lunch's leftovers. So super excited about that. This is a great way to start thinking about mealtime, you guys. Let go of the stigma associated to leftovers, you guys. There's nothing wrong with leftovers. They're wonderful tools and great, quick, easy ways to kind of use as a launch pad into the next meal period or into the next day. So again, you guys, we're going to get started. You can chat with me with the chat function, you guys. You can type in questions, and please don't hesitate to do so. Those of you that know me know that I love interacting with you guys, so don't hold back. I will just ask that we keep our video and our audio muted, and we've already done that for you. So just make sure that it stays that way, and we are in good shape. Okay, we're gonna get started. So as always, you guys, we're gonna talk through equipment really quickly. We are still working on that equipment list. Hopefully you've got the equipment list, but it's a little bit more elaborate in the list that I'm gonna give you today. So I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to just kind of maybe do some last minute gathering of some equipment so that everything can be pulled together and we can work smoothly right into lunchtime. All right, so that said, we're gonna start on this side of the kitchen and we're gonna work our way over here. Chef Angela, can you confirm we can see here? Nope, okay, super. So the first piece, you guys, we're gonna have either a stock pot or like the largest saucepan you have. A stock pot would be ideal. We want something nice and large. We're gonna cook our pasta in here, and we never wanna be too crowded in our pan. So we want a large amount of water in here. I'm actually using about a gallon of water in here, okay? So we need that. Go ahead and grab that. We're gonna grab a colander of some sort, okay? We're gonna use a medium saucepan. We're gonna use 2 medium or small saute pans. You could probably get by with 1. But we're gonna use 2 today as well. You might be able to kind of wipe it out after that first use. Otherwise, grab 2 if you've got them. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons, a half cup. We're gonna do a teaspoon. Grab a cereal bowl, a ramekin, even just a small plate would be just fine. And then if you've got them, like 2 small containers or another small plate perhaps, just to use for kind of storage devices for us as we move through production. Of course, we've got our cutting board. We'll only need 1 today. We've got our chef knife, really important, you guys. I highly recommend that we use a chef knife as opposed to a paring knife or a utility knife or some of these other things. I know it might initially feel a little unusual to have this big, scary knife in your hand, but once you get used to it, it's a phenomenal. So I do recommend that we use a chef knife or a French knife today. So go ahead and grab that. What else do we need? If you have a scooper like this, okay, go ahead and grab that. This is like a small ice cream scooper sort of. I know probably not a lot of you do have this. You could also use maybe like a tablespoon. Grab an extra tablespoon maybe, okay? And then you want 1 cookie sheet. You can use 1 cookie sheet. I'm gonna use 2 today, which is actually the same size as 1 regular cookie sheet. So you can use either or, and then either line it with parchment paper like I have here, or grab your pan spray. If you've got like some avocado oil pan spray, you can just give your pan a little spray there as well if you don't have the parchment paper. So pull that within arm's reach. I want you to grab a 1 cup measuring device, a 1/4 cup measuring device, either a box grater with a really small fine shredder on it, or a microplane. And if you don't have one of these, you guys, one of the best tools in your kitchen, I promise. Go out and get a microplane. These are just the best. They'll make anything big, small. Anything you want to make small, this will do it for you. And then grab a medium mixing bowl. So something like this guy. All right. And that is our equipment. So next we're gonna run through our food, okay? And we're gonna put our food basically in two different sort of piles, if you will, in your kitchen, okay? So I want you to grab your extra virgin olive oil and put that in the same area or same sort of pile with 1 medium to large onion, 4 garlic cloves. Yes. What number is the scoop? Oh, great question, you guys. This is a 40. It's a 40. And if you actually break it down, it is 1.5 tablespoons. So again, if you have a 40 scoop, awesome. Otherwise, grab a tablespoon and we will just leave it kind of heaping when we get to making our meatballs. Okay, great question. So we've got our olive oil, our onion, we've got our 4 cloves of garlic here, okay? We've got, grab your Italian seasoning, and then grab your soup from yesterday, okay? Again, we made this beautiful tomato soup for lunch yesterday. So here's our leftovers. I've got in another area. I want you to grab the oil, your fennel. It could be whole fennel seed or ground. Either way, I'm going to show you how to manage that. 2 eggs. We've got our Parmesan, okay? And again, I talk about this often. Always buy whole cheese if you can and grate it yourself. It's just a superior product and it's fresher and all that good, better flavor, all that good stuff. If you bought a pre-ground Parmesan, you'll be fine today. But grab your Parmesan cheese, grab your parsley. Okay, put that in the same pile. And then we're using panko today, and there's panko in your recipe, and panko is a Japanese style breadcrumb. It's a coarser grind than other breadcrumbs. If you couldn't find it, you could use just a regular breadcrumb as well, but I do prefer panko. If you are gluten-free, for example, and we're not, this recipe is not gluten-free, but we'll talk about, you know, as we move through ways to make it gluten-free. It's not really that hard. When I need a gluten-free panko, I haven't found one or like a pre-made one that I really like. I'll grab a loaf of gluten-free bread, whichever one I run across, and I'll bring that home and I'll take out, you know, 3, 4, 5 slices of that gluten-free bread, let it sit out and stale a while, let it get a little bit dry, and then I'll throw that into my food processor and just pulse it up, and then it'll turn into your own gluten-free panko. So love that. I do that all the time when it's important that my recipe is gluten-free, okay? So we've got all that stuff in another pile in our kitchen, all right? Also at this time, I want you to go ahead and preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I would use convection if you've got it as well. I almost always use convection. It speeds things up. It cooks things more efficiently as well. So unless you're cooking a really delicate souffle or something like that, I always have my convection on, okay? So again, 400 with that convection on if you have it. Not the end of the world if you don't, okay? So with that, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get started. I'm gonna give you just about 10 seconds here to finish kind of pulling things together while I wash my hands, and then I want you to wash your hands as well. Superb. Okay, I am back. So we're gonna start off, you guys, and we're gonna get our sauce started. Now this is what we're gonna make today is a reduction, essentially. We're taking a soup, which is relatively kind of loose and liquidy, and we're gonna reduce it down. Our target is to reduce it down by about half. And the way that we do that is really simply just simmering it. The steam goes away, the texture, the flavor, the intensity, all that is just bigger and more robust, but what's left behind in our pan, okay? So in order to do that, we have a couple little pieces of prep to hammer out here. First is gonna be our onion, okay? So grab your onion, and I know some of you have seen me do this multiple times, but we wanna identify the pointy end, and we're gonna slice off a fair amount of that pointy end, enough to expose each of the rings in my onion, okay? So you can get rid of that. The scraggly little root end, I'm just gonna shave. And this is key, you guys. I really, literally just want to shave that off, a paper thin a little bit, leaving that solid core intact, okay? That was awesome. Okay, and now I've got a flat side here. We're gonna go ahead and set it on that flat side because anything roly-poly when you have a flat side is gonna be safer to cut. And then my knife is gonna go right through the middle of that core, just like that, leaving half of the core on each side of the onion. Okay, and then now you can go ahead and peel it. If you have anything brown or this layer is just kind of wilted, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get rid of that. It peels much easier after you've cut it in half. So don't try to peel it, you guys, when it's still left whole. It's gonna be a pain in the butt, really, really difficult. So we're gonna small dice this guy, and I'm gonna cut down to this board, not through the top, always cutting towards the center as I move through this guy. Try to make every cut you make the same thickness, okay? When I'm at the top, I'm going straight up and down. As I arc over, my knife is again moving back towards the center of that onion. And now I have little to hold on to, so I'm just gonna reach my hand over to stabilize it for that final cut or two. I'm gonna turn it a quarter turn, and then whatever thickness I cut this way, I wanna cut that same thickness this way. But now I'm gonna be going all the way through. And this is gonna give us a nice, even, consistent cut, so that all my pieces are the same or similar size, which is really important when we're doing our prep so that everything cooks at the same rate. And as you can see, as we kind of burst it apart a little bit, all of our pieces are very close to the same size. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that again with the other half of our onion. I want you guys to do both halves as well. If you're following along with the recipe and you're like, why do I need all this onion? The recipe only asks for a half of a cup. You'll see in just a minute, okay? So we're gonna do that same thing again. Besides the fact that practice is just good, right? Always cutting towards the center, keeping that onion actually intact via that core. Turn it a quarter turn, and we'll complete that cut. And my little handle, my little core, just goes away then, okay? Very, very good. So we're gonna grab our half cup measure, and we're gonna grab just the onions that we need here. And when we do measure, we really don't want like that measuring device to be accurate. It should be level as we move across. So we don't want onions to be heaping here, or it's not, you know, an accurate measurement. So I want your half a cup of onion there. The rest of our onion is gonna go into that small cereal bowl or ramekin that we had, that we gathered before. Go ahead. Pop that onion in there. So as I was saying, you guys, even though my recipe only asks for a half of a cup of onion, I would never stop processing that onion because the cutting board is here and my knife is here and my hands are full of onion. Why would I ever want to cut onions 2 times, right? If I could get it done 1 time. Today, we're going to be using this onion in our next recipe. But even if you don't have a plan for it, you guys, having prepped onions speeds up omelet time in the morning, speeds up dinner time, speeds up really everything else in the kitchen. Just having just that cut once mindset is what we call it in professional kitchens. Cut 1 time, not 2 times, okay? So we've got that guy. And actually this ramekin or cereal bowl of onions is gonna go into our second pile of goodies over here. So you can just set it over there, all right? Then we've got some garlic here as well. You may have noticed, again, if you're following along with your recipe, it asks for 2 cloves of garlic. Same thing here, cut 1 time, not twice, okay? We need garlic in our second recipe as well. So streamline those processes as much as you can. You'd be shocked at how much time it can save you in the kitchen. So we're gonna go ahead with these guys, and you can, again, you can set your knife on it sideways like this and give it a little tap. I don't need to crush the heck out of it. I really only wanna tap it enough to break that paper on the outside. And once that paper is broken, it peels super easy, okay? If you don't want to use your knife like this, if that makes you nervous, you can actually just use the heel of your hand as well. And just smash it enough, again, to break that paper. And then for the most part, it comes right off, okay? So I want you to go ahead and peel all 4 of those cloves of garlic. Now, if you have one of those, I should probably get one. If you have one of those little chunks of hose, yeah, if you have one of those, you can slide your garlic clove right in there, and then you just roll it, and it peels it super easily. I'm not a big gadget guy, really, so I've been really hesitant to get them. but it is a good tool and it doesn't take up a lot of space. So it might be a good one. I might have to officially start recommending that. But as you can see, even if you don't have it, you can peel it pretty easily. Now, if you need a large amount of garlic, right, that can kind of extend the amount of time that this takes, you can actually also take 2 bowls that are the same size. You can throw the whole head of garlic in here, flip the other one over the top, and you just shake it like this. And it makes a lot of noise, so make sure nobody's sleeping, right? But the garlic will bang around in there, the cloves will come apart, and the skins will come off, okay? Now, I don't recommend doing that if I only need a couple of cloves of garlic, because then the rest of the garlic is kind of naked, if you will, right? And it starts to dry out. So, but that tip is really handy if you do need a lot of garlic for whatever reason. Okay, I also, you guys, have my sanitizer towel here. I do recommend, folks, obviously work cleanly in the kitchen. I mean, that's something that's drummed into our heads from very early on as a professional food service person. And if you want to kind of get into that habit at home as well, a couple tablespoons of bleach and a quart of water will give you that very similar antimicrobial, anti-pathogenic effect to keep your surfaces nice and tidy. Because garlic, for example, gets sticky and can be a pain in the butt to process. Otherwise, your knife as well, you can keep that nice and tidy too. So in your recipe, it asks for it minced. I'm gonna make a little modification there, just in the interest of time, right? Our goal with these is to get lunch on in an hour. So we're just gonna slice it nice and thin. It's gonna work just fine because all of these things are cooking for a relatively long time. So I'm gonna grab it with my little stem end there in my claw hand right here. And then I'm gonna just slice as thinly as I comfortably can. And I'm gonna move down until I have just that little handle left, and then it goes away. So go ahead, because I never take this off, okay? I always use that to hold on to it as I'm slicing it thinly. Beautiful. Go ahead and cut all 4 of your cloves, please. Slice them up, looking good. There's my little handles, those go away. I'm gonna take one of my little containers here, or one of those small plates that we gathered, and I'm just gonna eyeball about half of my garlic is gonna go into that guy, and then that's gonna go into that second set of ingredients as well. The other half of the garlic I'm just gonna set on my board here, okay? And we're gonna get our sauce started. All right, so we're gonna put our medium saucepan on the stove. We're gonna put about a medium heat on it, start heating it up. We're gonna do a tablespoon of olive oil. And here again, I don't wanna get this super duper hot because olive oil is a delicate oil. It has a low smoke point. Again, kind of staying true to, some Italian roots to these meatballs. Otherwise, if you're, concerned about the amount of heat that you're adding to it, use a more neutral oil. Use an avocado oil, something like that. And of course, I know my oil is preheating when it moves across the pan more quickly, and then it'll kind of shimmer as it moves across as well. We don't want to add food to cool oil, or the food just kind of soaks that oil up. The oil is there to help the food cook more evenly, more consistently. And then of course, extra virgin olive oil has some great kind of health benefits for us as well. We know we need some fat. Now we want to incorporate some healthy fat into our diets. It is important for optimal brain function and a lot of other bodily functions as well. So my oil is looking pretty good here already. Again, you'll see me moving it across the pan. I want to see it move quickly like water, not slow and sludgy. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add my half a cup of onion. And we've got some sizzle, which is good. I'm gonna turn that down. I just wanna maintain a nice light little sizzle in there. Grab a soft spatula as well, you guys. I like to give the onions a little bit of a head start. Garlic is very delicate and tender, and it will burn way before your onion will, okay? Onion is more of a robust, kind of a tougher aromatic. So we always want to give the onion. If we were using carrot or celery or anything like that in here as well, we would give that a jump start at this point as well, and always hold off that garlic, at least for a couple of minutes. Not super important that we're browning here necessarily. I just want to really honestly sweat these vegetables. So make them tender, make them soft. They should kind of glisten. They'll lose that bright whiteness, and they'll kind of get this, you know, glossy sheen to them, which maybe kind of see in there. We're about ready to move already, okay? So we're looking good there. And again, if your onions are browning or if they're popping and cracking at you, turn that heat down, okay? So I always say, you guys, I don't care what the knob of your stove says. If it says simmer, if it says medium or high, what I do care about is what's going on in your pan, okay? So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our garlic. We got a question. With a 5-quart enamel pan that I stole from Aldi's, I'm assuming you got a really good deal on it. Would it work for this? And would it be too heavy? No, that'd be absolutely perfect for this. Yep, perfect option. In fact, as I was setting this up, I actually stopped and took a look at mine, and I thought about grabbing that, but it will fit in this, so I grabbed this. But either one is fine, definitely. Great question. So we're just giving that garlic a little sweat here as well, and then we're gonna get our Italian seasoning in here. I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of that. Here, you know, there's some forgiveness here. If you are really digging Italian seasoning, right, and you wanna boost that flavor, or maybe you wanna cut the salt back in your dish, maybe that's really important to you, go ahead and boost the other flavoring components in it, right? So if you wanna, if you're really digging that, or you want to cut your salt a little bit in this guy, do about do a tablespoon and a half, or a heaping tablespoon. Either one is totally fine. While I have it here as well, I'm going to grab one more tablespoon. Okay, and I'm going to put it in that my other little vessel here, and now I'm going to add that to my second grouping of ingredients as well. So you can kind of see how we're, you know, doing things only one time. I'm measuring, I'm cutting only one time, using it in multiple different applications. Good idea as well here, as I was saying, to add the herbs here to give them just a light little toast, okay? There are certain cultures in the world where they wouldn't dream of adding an herb or a spice to a dish without toasting it first. So toasting in this dry environment with the small amount of fat, as opposed to just adding it to the sauce after the wet ingredients are added. It enhances, develops, grows the flavor of those things. Looking good here. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add my soup now. Oh yeah. So this is the soup from yesterday. Again, if you weren't with us yesterday, or maybe you didn't cook along yesterday, I'll forgive you this time. You can use a canned product. You'll be just fine here. All right, looking good. So we do want this to come back up to a simmer as quickly as possible, okay? So go ahead and turn your heat up, maybe all the way up to high, okay? Bring it up to a simmer, and then after it's come up to a simmer, you can turn that back down again to maintain that simmer. It's not really cooking, it's not reducing, the flavors aren't really blending until it comes up to that simmer point. Simmer, of course, means, and again, doesn't mean what's on the handle of your stove. It means that there's small bubbles coming to the surface in that thing, okay? So we want to see that happen. Okay, we're in good shape. Pasta water. So I want you to now go ahead and in your large stock pot, go ahead and maybe fill it halfway up. If you want to measure a gallon of water, you can, but about halfway to 2/3 of the way up. And then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of salt to this, which I actually already did. Okay, I know it sounds like a ton of salt, but we're not going to be sitting down eating this, okay? Just a small amount of that is going to be absorbed into our pasta. So I want you to get that going, get some heat on that guy as well. Again, we want to do as much as we can to streamline these processes, so I'm not spending 30 minutes making the sauce and then starting to think about the meatball or the pasta. Okay, we're doing all of these things at the same time, essentially. And mine is coming up to a simmer. Make sure you're centered on your heat source as well, so that right? You have bubbles kind of coming around all sides, not just around half of it. And I'm gonna give it a little stir. Oh yeah, we're looking good. Okay, and again, when I say reduce by half, that means that I'll just kind of make in my mind, make a mark in the side of the pan, and I'll look for it to be half of what it once was. And that means it's been reduced by half, if you hear that. If you say reduced by 3/4, it will be 1/4 of what it once was. So the flavor, the texture, everything has been intensified by 3/4, okay? And that's a technique we use a lot, actually, when we talk in, commercial kitchens, commercial production, when we, talk about building flavor. Reduction is a really powerful tool to kind of have an understanding of. Okay, so while this is working, I'm gonna actually slide it behind me here so that I can continue working on this unit in front of us. Okay, so for our meatball, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and it says canola oil. You can definitely use canola oil. I'm gonna use avocado oil. Again, some of you have heard me talk about this many times. Avocado is the new canola. It's just a better for you option. They both work really well in the kitchen. This is a little bit less refined, a little bit more natural, a little bit better source of the fat. So we're gonna go ahead and in my small or medium saute pan, I'm gonna put that on the fire and I'm gonna put that on like a medium low, basically because of the size of the pan. It's a smaller pan, so the size of the vessel, right, impacts the amount of heat you might want to give it as well. You can measure out a tablespoon of your oil in here. Otherwise, I'll just add, when I do add oil, I don't always measure it. I either want enough to lightly coat the bottom of my pan or enough to lightly coat the food. That's what I'm looking for, okay? So just a nice light coating on the bottom of my pan there. All right, then this is gonna look actually relatively similar to what we just did here, okay? So once this is preheated, you can check as well, take one little piece and kind of pop it in there. If you've got some bubbles working, you're good to add the rest. If not, you might wanna wait another 30 seconds. And we're ready. Okay, I don't know, can you hear the sizzle? Okay, so we've got our onion in there. Spread that around a little bit. With our soft spatula, we might give it a little toss. But again, you can see, right, there's not like a big pool of fat in here, just enough to lightly coat those onions. Okay, that's what we want. Yes, question. The what ratio? Bleach ratio, yeah. So the question is, what was the bleach ratio for that sanitizer liquid? It's, I believe it's even, if you wanted to go and check it out on the CDC website to confirm, I believe it's 2 tablespoons of bleach per quart of water. So 2 tablespoons per 4 cups of water, because there's 4 cups in 1 quart. Let's see, and that's gonna look like, this is a 4-cup container right here. So it's gonna look like about that much. And it's not, you don't have to like measure and be super precise. You can the first couple times you make it, but eventually you'll kind of be able to eyeball it as well. Great question, great question. In commercial kitchens, we use something called quaternary ammonia, and you can't find that for in a residential setting. So the bleach works really well. If you're weirded out at all by the use of the bleach, some people, we really want to work to be chemical free. I've even used, so I'll acidify the water. So you might use, maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of like a vinegar, a white wine vinegar, or even more affordably, just a distilled vinegar, or squeeze some lemons in there. All of those things will acidify the water and give you some antimicrobial effects as well. All right, so we're looking good. Again, we're really just sweating here. I don't need to see any browning here. If it's browning super fast or super uneven, go ahead and turn that heat down. So we're gonna go ahead, now we're gonna add our garlic. Give that a little toss. Looking good. Yes, so the question, why do I like to use this soft spatula? So many people that work here in our kitchen with us will grab a spoon, a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon or things like that, and I don't like them. And the reason is, if it's a hard thing like this, and stick with me here, that my hand is the bottom of a pan, say, right? Or I could use, right? I'm manipulating about 1/8 of an inch of product on the bottom of that pan. Okay. Now, if I use the soft spatula, now I'm manipulating like 3 inches of what's happening in the bottom of that pan. So it's, from that perspective, because it's really important what's happening in the bottom of a pan too. If you're cooking a thickened thing, a slightly thickened thing, it can burn on the bottom and you'd never know, just by looking at it. So that's why I love these guys. They're not all created equal either, you guys. I'm not gonna say that. You do want to make sure, look for one that has a high heat tolerance. 500 degrees is kind of benchmark for commercial kitchens, and you can get those right in the the Target or wherever you tend to frequent. But look for that nice high heat tolerance, and they are great tools. Who said that? Rick? Rick is here with us today, you guys, and he said that his chili is twice as good because of using the silicone spatula. And I absolutely believe that, Rick. Rick's chili is amazing, by the way, you guys, for sure. Chili master. So I did, as I was talking there, you guys, I added those herbs again, as I just wanted to give them a nice little toast here. It doesn't have to be too terribly long, but do give them a little bit of a toast to develop and grow those flavors. And then we're gonna turn this guy off, okay? So we've just really sweated things, toasted the herbs. It smells amazing in here. Hopefully it smells amazing in your kitchen as well right now, you guys. Set that there. All right. Then we're gonna grab our meat. So go ahead and grab your ground meat. Now in the recipe, and I wrote this recipe to be done with a grass-fed bison. And that was actually, I wrote this around the time I was on an elimination diet, and many commercially produced meats were not favored on that elimination diet. So I started using more natural meats. Now, if you don't have it, can't find it, whatever the case may be, use a ground beef product. Organic is better, grass-fed is even better, right? So look for those things. This one today, actually, right, there's not a right or wrong, a hard and fast right or wrong answer here either. This is actually 1 pound of a nice grass-fed organic ground beef, and then I had a couple chicken breasts laying around. So I actually ran them through my grinder, which I'll show you a little bit later, and I mixed those together. So this is half ground beef, half chicken. So what we did there actually is we essentially we reduced the fat and made this a little bit more lean, okay? And we'll talk more about kind of how that might have changed it as well. But feel free always to experiment, right? It doesn't, just because maybe you can't find the grass-fed bison, use elk or beef or other things, and the end result's still going to be really, really good. So there is that. To that, I'm going to go ahead and add my salt. I'm going to add my salt here. And we're going to add about a teaspoon of fennel. And I thought I would show you real quickly. If you have pre-ground fennel, you don't have to do this step at all. But I have fennel seeds, and I have a mortar and pestle as well. If you have like a spice grinder or a coffee mill, you could do this. When possible, I do like to use whole spices in place of something that's been ground and sitting on a shelf for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop these in here. And this is what they look like, by the way, as well. Okay. The other reason that I'm doing this is I actually prefer a really rough grind on these. So I'm just getting in here and I'm beating it up a little bit with the pestle part here. And you can see, right, they're pretty consistently, I would say, been at least broken in half. Oh, and so aromatic and awesome. Give them a little smash, take your misplaced aggressions out, right? And there we go. a nice coarse grind, okay? I'm all about that. So we'll go ahead with our measuring device here. We'll gather that. Okay, looking good. And again, if you have the pre-ground, just fine. Go ahead and use that pre-ground. We are gonna prep our Parmesan now. If you're using pre-ground Parmesan as well, you're a step ahead of us. All right, we're gonna hit it on this guy. Make it nice and small. And I think we want about a cup. Again, if you really dig cheese, add a little bit more, right? If you're trying to reduce your dairy, add a little bit less, or don't add any at all. It's not, you know, crucial to the success of this dish. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left, you guys. We're gonna rock and roll at this point. So hang on tight. Okay, there's my cheese. That's gonna go in there. It looks like a ton. Shredded cheese always looks like more than it actually is because it's filled with air, right? It's intermingled with the air. I'm gonna give my sauce a little stir. Don't completely forget about your sauce either. Give it a little stir every now and then. Make sure that we're not burning on the bottom. Again, we want it to be simmering, not vigorously boiling, but this looks incredible here. We had a question, the best way to store Parmesan. If it's whole, I want to wrap it in plastic right on the cheese itself. Don't put it in a container because then you're trapping oxygen in there. Oxygen is the enemy of food. So by putting plastic right on it, wrapping it tightly, folding those ends, you're keeping all the oxygen off of that food, and it'll last quite a while that way. And then of course, always in the refrigerator. Great question. Okay. We're gonna move forward with, we've got a couple of eggs are gonna go in here. So just go ahead and crack those in there. All right, we're gonna do a cup of our panko. How's our pasta water doing, you guys? Are we boiling yet? If we're not, let's crank them up. We're gonna do about a cup of panko, which we already talked about. If you don't use the panko, you guys, you could skip it entirely if you want, but know that it's gonna be really dense and almost hard, okay? So the panko is gonna bring a little bit of softness, if you will, to our meatball. And then we're gonna quickly chop about a quarter cup of our parsley. So go ahead, I just kind of grab it at the top, twist it off, and we're gonna use this whole thing here, okay? About maybe say an eighth of an average bundle, right? And we're gonna set it down. We'll roll it slightly, fold that blossom end over, gently roll it into this neat little bundle, okay? And then we'll just slice it nice and thin. It can be a little bit coarse, that's just fine. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a powdered thing, super, super small. And then if you wanna make it a little bit smaller, you can do kind of the old rock and chop through here. Okay, but this is plenty small. Plenty, don't go crazy with it. If you want, you can measure it. Let's see, how did I do? Just keep pressing it in there. Yep, beautiful. That's going in. I'm gonna get all this from my board here. Parsley's good. Quick wipe down. And then we've got our onions here. Onion's gonna go in. Notice I added that last just to give it a couple of minutes to kind of cool. I don't want it to be coming in here super hot and actually like cooking the meat in here, right? Okay. Best way to wash the parsley before chopping it is the question. And I would grab it. I would even take it off of the bundle if you don't want to wash the whole bundle, and then just take it and either submerge it in water and kind of, you know, run your hand underwater, or just let a lot of water run over the top of it. And then you can actually just kind of give it a little bit of a squeeze, shake it off. We do want our herbs to be, you know, kind of as dry as possible. Not super important in this installment, but if I'm going to use it as a garnish, we do want it to be dry and not wet and clumpy. So always just wash it in some fresh water, either underneath or let it run through. Good idea to rinse it, of course, but then we do want to let it dry as well. Great question. So I'm actually going to grab one more spatula here. Let's do, and I'm going to use like a firm one this time, something you might flip a pancake with. And I'm going to get in and I'm just going to kind of start mixing this up a little bit. Wow, that was beautiful. I will add a little bit of that back here. So why did that happen, you guys? My bowl's a little small. For this quantity of stuff, my bowl is a little small. That's why I had that panko try to escape, but ha, I won. I'm gonna get in here with my hands now, and we're just gonna kind of turn it together. Now, little word of warning about the meat that you do choose to use. When you look at ground meat, you'll usually see like a percentage of fat, okay? And many of us still operate in the, the mindset of something that became very popular back in the 80s and 90s, this low fat craze, or we see fat and we think less is better. And that's not always the case, okay? Especially with like ground meats. So like meatballs and meatloaf or burgers, if you try to get too lean, and some of you have probably experienced this and maybe not known why this happened, but again, it gets to be really kind of dry and crumbly, right? And not always super, fun to eat. So I never want to be too lean with the meats that I'm choosing. Okay, this is looking really good. We're almost ready to put our meatballs together. However, I have to taste it first, okay? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. But it's really important before I go through the process of making all these perfect little balls, I have to taste this to see if it needs a little adjustment in salt. So I'm gonna make the tiniest little flattest patty I can make, and I'm gonna pop it into my other pan here, and I'm gonna wash my hands. So go ahead, pop it into your saute pan, wash your hands, and then I'll meet you back there. And you know the drill, hot water, soap, 20 seconds. We should be rinsing with a disposable towel as well. That's always gonna be best practice, you guys, as opposed to drying your hands 20 times on the same, kitchen towel, which can easily get contaminated. Use those paper towels. And that's actually mandatory in commercial kitchens as well. Okay, so we're gonna fire this guy on some heat. Get it cranking. My pasta water is ready, you guys. I'm boiling like crazy here. So I am actually gonna get my pasta started. I'm using a penne pasta. That's what I wrote with. You could use any pasta you wanted to. I'm gonna talk a little bit later about alternative pastas as well that you could use. Make sure your water is rolling, and then we're gonna get our pasta in there. We're gonna go all in with it. Of course, because we want it all to cook at the same rate. So if I, maybe if I'm making 2 boxes, say, and I add one, and then I have to go open up the other box, or, and then I got to find the scissors or the knife or whatever. It could be maybe a minute between, the 2 boxes going in, and that's not ideal. Pasta cooks a lot in 1 minute. So I always want to make sure that do my best to get it all in there at the same time, so it cooks, again, at the same rate. Okay, I got a little sizzle on my little tester here. I'm gonna clear off some of my other goodies here to make space as well. All right. So basically we're just, we're cooking this to make it safe to taste so that I can see if I need to adjust the salt at all. That's what's going on here. Smells amazing already. The question is, do I always do that with meat? Ground meats, I would say, again, if I'm making, I would say actually, yes, always, right? Really important. And again, those of you that know me know that I'm like, did you taste it? Taste your food. You gotta taste your food. If you don't know what it tastes like, you shouldn't ever be serving it to anyone, right? And that's, again, just been drummed into my head after years and years in restaurants. but there's no reason not to at home as well. Especially important with things like this, where we're making small meatballs out of it. So now I'm getting into my restaurant mode a little bit, but now I'm investing labor in it, whether I'm paying someone to do it or I'm doing it, I'm still investing time in it to make these perfect, beautiful little balls. I roast them, they come out, I'm super excited about it, and I taste it, and it's bland and boring and under-seasoned, right? I could have avoided that just by doing this right here. So great question. Okay. So mine is done. Mine is as well, you guys, it's a little whiter than what you might be experiencing if you're using, you know, the ground bison or ground beef, but that's again the presence of the chicken that I have in mine. Okay, and then cool it off a little bit. We're gonna taste it. I know, it's rough working in the kitchen, right? Oh, I don't always nail it, okay? A lot of times I have to adjust here. Mine's right on. If you taste it and you're like, wow, this is pretty good, but it's not like, I want an explosion of flavor, because I don't want to sit down and eat half of this. I want that flavor to satiate me, to satisfy me, so that I might sit down and only eat maybe 3 meatballs, right? So adjust your salt. Give it a little bit more salt if you need to. Mix it up really good if you need to. And then we're gonna start making our meatballs here. And I'm just using this guy, portioning them out. You can see this goes pretty quick, and it gives you what's that? Oh yeah, oops, sorry. And it gives you really consistent size pieces, which, you know, right, is the theme of the day. They'll cook at the same rate as long as they're the same size as one another. So I'm just popping these guys out in any, you know, putting them anywhere that they'll fit here, because we are gonna roll them really quickly as well. All right. So I'm gonna grab them, and I'm just gonna give them a little roll like this, just to make them nice and round. Okay, if your meat mixture is really sticky, which mine is cooperating pretty well, usually if it tends to get warm at all, like comes up to room temperature, it might get really sticky and not roll super well in your hands. So you can manage that by just putting a little bit of oil on your hands, right? Just kind of sort of put a little bit on your fingers and spread it across your hands. All right, these are looking super good. Question is, do I always use parchment as opposed to like a greased or sprayed baking sheet? And not necessarily. If I've got it, right, I'll use it. It's really slick, makes cleaning the pan super easy as well. But again, not the end of the world to just give it a spray as well if you don't have it. It's more and more easy to find now, actually, which is really great. It used to be kind of difficult to find in residential sources, retail sources, but now it's pretty easy to find by the equipment, right, in your market. And I'm setting these balls near one another, but it's important that they're not touching one another, okay? We want that air movement on all sides, and they could be, you know, set closer together than this even if you were making, you know, a full batch. So question about silicone mats. Could I use a silicone mat in place, right, of the parchment? And I'm just gonna get this in the oven, you guys, and then we'll come back and answer that question. Chef, would you pull the oven for me? I'm all meaty. Beautiful. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna wash again real quick, you guys. So the question was, could we use a silicone mat, right, in place of the parchment paper or the spray? And absolutely, you absolutely could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, nothing sticks to those things. They are a wonderful piece of equipment. If you're not familiar with them, they're very popular for like baking things. A lot of bakers use them, from anything from, you know, baking bread on them to making like tuiles, right, where you melt the cheese, or the sugar, simple batter, pour it out on there, and those kinds of things will stick to almost everything, but they won't stick to a silicone mat. So those are definitely, those would definitely work well here. Okay, so our meatballs are in. We're coming down. We've got about 7 minutes left. It's gonna be a little tight, you guys. Hang with us. The pasta is my pasta is working here. Make sure and take a peek at your pasta. Give it a little stir if you need. Make sure that none of it is sticking to the bottom. I'm gonna bring our sauce back up here as well and kind of show you what that looks like. So I didn't stir it yet. You can kind of see sort of the mark on the pan where the sauce was and how much it has reduced. So it's reduced about maybe 1 inch on the bottom of our pan there, which is pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna stir this up and bring it together, and it has gotten significantly thicker as well. And that is what we want. That is exactly what we want. As it thickens, again, the flavors, everything is just enhanced and boosted. It also will cling better to your pasta when we do dress our pasta as well. So I'm gonna keep that going. If you've got time, I mean, honestly, there's no, well, I shouldn't say there's no wrong answer as far as how far you can reduce it, but take it down. You know, if you like a really thick, chunky pasta sauce, this will get there, definitely. You just have to simmer it a little bit longer. I'm gonna tidy up my station here. And then, how we doing out there, you guys? We doing okay? Raise your hand if you're hanging in there, keeping up. See the little raise your hand function on your device? As long as your hands aren't full of meat, right? Okay. Couple hands. Amy, Julia, and Catherine, way to go. Good job, you guys. It's gonna be delicious. I bet your kitchens smell amazing. Oh, can you answer that? So someone else is then. Working on it. The question was, where's the raise your hand function? Okay. Couple of things that we haven't talked about yet as we're kind of waiting for these meatballs. So meatballs are in. They're gonna take somewhere, you know, around 10 minutes probably, but they're working. They're looking really good. Our sauce is looking really good. Our pasta is rocking here as well. I told you that I ground the chicken myself, right? And I use this guy right here to do so. If you don't have this meat grinder attachment for this, totally fine. Again, buy your meat pre-ground, but I thought it would be something that's kind of cool to talk about as we're waiting for things to finish here. So I did use mine, and it's in the dish room. Give me like 2 seconds, you guys, because I do want to show it to you. Okay, so here's the box that it came in, if you're interested at all. It's a KitchenAid product. This is the meat grinder attachment. And these are the pieces. So this is the ram. Here we've got the chute and the actual grinder itself, the auger, the collar, the die, and the blade. I don't know if you can see that, but all those pieces are there. And then to put them together, you use the power takeoff or the PTO piece of your KitchenAid. And that guy goes in, lock it on there, put the auger in, make sure that goes all the way in. Then your blade will go in. And it locks onto a little square guy there, and then your die. And there's different size holes, so that I think this one comes with 2 or 3 of these. I always use the biggest one. I feel like on the littlest one, it almost just makes like a pate size texture, and I like it. I don't dig that, right? So I want it to be a little bit bigger. So I use the one with the biggest holes, and then that guy locks on there. The collar goes over the top here. You can crank that on, and then you're really ready to go. This is your ram. You've got your little tray here. You put your cubed meat in here. The meat only has to be broken down small enough to fit into this chute here. So it can be as big as this guy or even a little bit bigger. And then you just crank it up, turn it on, make sure you've got a bowl underneath, and it comes out this guy right here. Really, really slick. So if you're interested at all, And this one is actually one of the more affordable of the KitchenAid attachments. I want to say this one I only paid about 50 bucks for. So pretty great. And some of my clients actually don't buy ground meat anymore. They always grind their own because it really is a lot better, you guys. If you think about it, the meat that they're grinding in those butcher shops, in those any of those butcher shops, is it might be stuff that maybe didn't sell in the case. So now they it might have a little bit of age on it, perhaps. So now they're breaking it down, grinding it, and presenting it to you again. That's a possibility. I'm not saying everyone does that, but they're also again likely not using top-notch ingredients, right? They're not grinding up premium stuff. They're trying to sell that premium stuff in its whole state because, well, there's a greater margin on it, to be honest. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. But if you grind your own, so darn good. Giving my sauce a little stir here again. I'm going to give my sauce a taste here as well, you guys, just to see where we're at. If I do want to add any more salt. Notice I didn't add any salt to this either, you guys, okay? Because the soup from yesterday was already salted like to perfection for a soup. So if I reduce that, the salt doesn't evaporate away. The salt is compounded the smaller and smaller it gets. So I do want to make sure that that it needs salt before I add any. I'm not just going to default to adding some. Even though some of you give me a hard time about how much salt I use. It actually doesn't need it. So a sauce, right, should be more flavorful and a little bit, more salty than a soup because I'm only eating a small amount. The soup should be more lightly seasoned because I'm generally eating a larger amount. Yes, Beth said her soup was the best ever. Way to go, Beth. Was it better than mine though? I don't know. Maybe it was. Good job. Okay, let's peek at our pasta. We are rolling. Looking good. How do I know when pasta is done? How do I know, you guys? Throw it against the wall? Do you throw it at the ceiling? No, I'm not doing that, okay? Go ahead and, because I gotta clean it. Go ahead and grab one out and we're gonna try it. That's really the best way. And I do wanna show you, we'll see. I'm gonna cut it. And this one is super, there is literally the tiny, if you see any white inside, it's not done. This is actually just done. So I should have pulled it a little bit earlier to show you, but this is done. The white is gone, try it. It's tender, it's not mushy, but it's not like gummy and sticking in your teeth. It's done, okay? So, turn your heat off. Whew, colander's a little warm, sitting a little close to the fire. Go ahead and pop your colander into your sink. Pasta into the colander. Grab a hot pad or a kitchen towel. Okay, we're gonna dump it all in there. Beautiful. Actually, let it strain off as good as you can. If you need to hold your pasta at all, you guys, so by hold, I mean like weight on it, don't serve it right away. Good idea to toss it with a little olive oil, a little extra virgin olive oil. And I say just a little, right? I don't want it swimming in it, but just enough to really lightly coat that pasta. That'll help it stop or help keep it from sticking together. I often get the question about adding oil to my pasta water. I don't know if anybody has done that or makes a practice of that, but I actually don't do that. It's really ineffective, to be honest with you. A little glug of extra virgin olive oil in a gallon of water is really not going to make your pasta not stick together. Better to do it after it's done, after it's strained off, that a little bit of oil will be more effective that way, okay? Sauce is absolutely looking amazing. I would say we probably are reduced down by about a half now. It's kind of hard to tell in this low, wide pan, but that's looking really good. Our pasta's ready. I'm gonna peek at our meatballs real quick, you guys. And They are looking good. We're a couple minutes out. I'm gonna grab a dinner plate. I'll be right back. Grab a couple dinner plates, you guys. There we go. Okay, so another great question. Does gummy, when we're trying the pasta, indicate over or underdone? That's gonna be an underdone. If it's gummy, sticks in your teeth, we probably all experienced this at some point. If it sticks in your teeth, it's underdone. So continue to cook it for maybe another 1 to 2 minutes and then try it again. Pasta should be tender, not mushy and falling apart, but also not gummy, right? So great question. Yeah, if it's a little gummy, all is not lost. Go ahead and continue to cook it for another, like I said, 1.5 minutes, okay? Looking good. Real quickly, you guys, I thought we have about 2 minutes left to our meatballs, okay? And we did go a little bit long here, you guys, so I do apologize. We're using leftovers here again. We talked about this a little bit already, right? Really good idea and really important to think about the way that we cool our leftovers, okay? Cooling is actually, according to a lot of statistics, much more dangerous than, improper cooling is much more dangerous than improper cooking, or a lot of times in the average home. We cook something to make it safe to consume, so we heat it up until it browns or it bubbles or whatever. We hit that 165, and it makes it essentially safe for us to consume. Cooling, now we have to go the other way, okay? So between 41 and 135, it's called the temperature danger zone, 41 to 135. And that's where microorganisms, pathogens, illness-causing microorganisms, where they grow best, okay? So we wanna go up through that as quickly as possible when we're cooking something, and we wanna go down through that as quickly as possible when we're cooling something as well. So how do we do that? For our soup yesterday, what I did, I let it chill on the stovetop for about 20 minutes maybe. Let the intense heat come off of it. Let it stop steaming, okay? And then there's a couple of things that you can do. You can either make it smaller, so put it in multiple small containers, or if it's a really large thing, you might put it in like a 3-inch baking dish, make it lower, okay? If we create more surface area on it, it will cool more quickly than if we leave it in, right, a very densely contained thing. And then I put it into the refrigerator after about 20 or 30 minutes, okay? Uncovered is key. As soon as we pop a cover on something, we're insulating it and extending the amount of time that it stays in that temperature danger zone. So it's another one that I talk a lot about during classes, you guys, is don't cover it, okay? Really, really important there. Don't cover it until hours later when the air has had an opportunity to move across the top of that thing and cool it down. Oh, thank you so much for the comment. Who was it from? Catherine, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Hope to see you again. Our meatballs are just about done here. We're gonna pull them out. Yes, we are. Actually, we're gonna leave them in for 30 seconds while we finish this guy. So, I like to dress my pasta. I'm gonna take my sauce. You could ladle it out. I'm just gonna kind of pour it now. There we go. I'm gonna take my pasta. I'm just doing a relatively small amount. If you're feeding your family for lunch, you can do, right? You can do the whole quantity in a big bowl, or you could add your pasta right into your saucepan there as well if you have the room. I'm gonna toss it together. Oh my goodness. This is a little bit of a large portion, so I'm gonna scale it back a little. Beautiful. We're gonna grab our meatballs. Oh, yes, they're starting to brown a little bit. I have cold dead chef hands, so I can just go in with my fingers, but you can use a tongs here as well. I'm gonna place 3 of these guys in there. I'm gonna just pull a little bit of parsley. I literally just took it off the plant and break it up in your fingers. Okay, if you wanted to, give this a little grate of your Parmesan as well. Oh, mine's still sitting here. This was fun. I didn't have ground beef, but I did have frozen meatballs, so I Nice, Mark. Mark improvised and used a frozen meatball product, mashed them together, and enhanced them with our recipe. So good job, Mark. Way to go with the improvisation. I encourage you guys to do so. There's our lunch for today. Yes. All right, you guys. Awesome job again. Thank you for being here. Shout out to the Fairview Foundation for sponsoring these and making it able for us to bring these to you at no cost. So thanks to everyone involved, everyone on that side. I'll give you a couple seconds. Any last minute questions about anything, you guys? Fire them away. How fast can you type? Absolutely, Rick. You got it. You can record us next week. Absolutely. Okay, guys. Thanks again. Join us next week for more of these. We've got a couple evening ones. Chef Angela is going to actually do like a planting gardening one, you know, as we get into growing season. So growing our own foods, we're super excited about that, and a bunch more going on here in our kitchen, as well as our trainers and our health and wellness coach, all sorts of virtual options, you guys. So thanks again. See you next week.